The untold story of Washington's Delaware crossing, a thrilling night that saved a revolution. It's Christmas night, 1776, and the American Revolution teeters on the edge of collapse. The Continental Army, battered and demoralized, has shrunk to a shadow of its former self. George Washington, a 44-year-old Virginia planter turned general, stands on the icy banks of the Delaware River in Pennsylvania, staring across the churning water toward the Hessian garrison in Trenton, New Jersey. His bold, desperate plan to launch a surprise attack on the enemy will unfold over the next few hours in a race against time, weather, and fate. This is the minute-by-minute story of how Washington crossed the Delaware, why he did it, and why it was far more pivotal than history often credits. By late 1776, the American cause seemed doomed. After declaring independence in July, the Continental Army suffered a string of crushing defeats. The British, under General William Howe, had driven Washington's forces out of New York City, capturing Long Island and Manhattan in brutal engagements. By December, Washington's army, once 20,000 strong, had dwindled to fewer than 5,000 men, many of whom were sick, starving, or poised to desert when their enlistments expired on January 1, 1777. The British, confident of victory, had paused their campaign for the winter, leaving Hessian mercenaries, German soldiers hired by the Crown, to hold key outposts like Trenton. Washington knew that without a decisive strike, the revolution would collapse. Morale was at its lowest. Congress had fled Philadelphia, and the British were poised to crush the rebellion come spring. Crossing the Delaware wasn't just a tactical move, it was a desperate gamble to prove the American cause could still fight, to rally the troops, and to ignite hope in a fledgling nation. The plan? A daring nighttime assault. Washington's strategy was audacious. Cross the Delaware under cover of darkness with 2,400 men, march 9 miles to Trenton, and attack the 1,500 Hessians at dawn on December 26th. The river, swollen with ice and whipped by a nor'easter, was a formidable barrier. He divided his force into 3 prongs, but only his group would succeed in crossing that night. The password for the operation, victory or death, reflected the stakes. December 25th, 6 p.m. The troops assemble. Wind howls and snow begins to fall. At McConkey's Ferry, Pennsylvania, Washington gathers his men. The soldiers, ragged, some shoeless, their feet wrapped in rags. Durham flat-bottomed boats, vessels typically used to ferry iron, are now tasked with carrying men, horses, and 18 cannons across a river clogged with ice floes. Among them are key figures. John Glover, a Marblehead fisherman whose regiment of mariners will row the boats. Henry Knox, the portly artillery commander whose cannons will prove decisive. James Monroe, an 18-year-old lieutenant, future president, clutching a musket. Alexander Hamilton, a fiery 21-year-old captain, commanding artillery. Washington mounts his horse, his face grim under his tricorn hat, and orders the crossing to begin. 7 p.m. The first boats push off. The first boats shove into the Delaware, piloted by Glover's men. The river is a maelstrom. Ice chunks slam into the hulls, and freezing spray drenches the troops. Washington stands in the lead boat, barking orders as oars strain against the current. The plan calls for the crossing to be complete by midnight, but the storm slows progress. Men shiver, their muskets soaked, their powder at risk of dampening. 8:30 p.m. halfway across, a boat nearly capsizes as ice jams its path. A soldier falls overboard, dragged under by the current before comrades haul him back, blue-lipped and gasping. Washington, unwavering, urges the men onward. "Press on, boys," he growls, his voice cutting through the wind. The delay mounts. Each minute risks discovery by Hessian scouts. 10 p.m. The snow continues to fall. Knox's cannons, lashed to sleds and boats, prove a nightmare to transport. One boat, overloaded, drifts dangerously low, water lapping at the gun barrels. Glover's mariners curse and heave, muscling the craft through the ice. Washington, now on the Jersey shore with the first wave, paces impatiently as the operation lags 2 hours behind schedule. December 26, 1776, 1 a.m. The crossing completes. The last boat scrapes ashore, hours late. It's pitch black, the storm a blinding mix of snow, sleet, and hail. Washington rallies his soaked, exhausted men, 2,400 soldiers, 200 horses, and Knox's precious cannons. "We march now," he declares, knowing dawn is their deadline. The 9-mile trek to Trenton begins with the snow still coming down. 4 a.m. The column stumbles through the blizzard, leaving bloody footprints from frostbitten feet, but keep marching. Sentries are posted to watch for Hessian patrols, but the storm cloaks their advance. Washington rides alongside, exhorting his men, "Stay with me, lads. We'll warm ourselves at Hessian fires soon." Monroe and Hamilton, young and eager, steady their units as morale wavers. 5 a.m. The army splits into two columns. General John Sullivan's division takes the river road, while Washington and General Nathaniel Greene arc toward the town's northern edge. The Hessians, under Colonel Johann Rall, sleep soundly, lulled by Christmas revelry and the storm's roar. Washington's scouts report no sentries. Rall, overconfident, dismissed warnings of an attack as rebel bluster. 5:30 a.m. The battle begins. Knox's cannons roar, shattering the pre-dawn silence. Hessian guards stumble into the streets as American troops pour in, bayonets fixed. Washington directs from horseback, his voice a thunderclap. "Forward, men, strike hard." Hamilton's artillery rakes the Hessian lines, while Monroe takes a musket ball to the shoulder, but fights on. The surprise is total. Rall, roused from bed, rallies his men too late. 6 a.m. Victory secured. In under an hour, the Hessians surrender. Rall falls, mortally wounded, and 900 of his men are captured. Washington's losses are minimal, 2 dead, 5 wounded, but the triumph is colossal. By 7 a.m., the army retreats back across the Delaware with prisoners and loot, the storm still raging. A turning point misunderstood. The crossing and Battle of Trenton didn't just win a skirmish, it resurrected the Revolution. The victory electrified the colonies, proving the Continental Army could strike and win against professional soldiers. Enlistment surged, and Washington's reputation as a daring leader solidified. Days later, he leveraged this momentum to win again at Princeton, further stalling the British advance. Yet, history often misunderstands its importance. Emanuel Lewitz's iconic 1851 painting, Washington standing heroically in the boat, glamorizes the crossing but obscures its desperation. It's seen as a patriotic footnote, not the pivot it was. Without this success, the army might have dissolved, and the British could have crushed the rebellion in 1777. Trenton wasn't just a battle. It was the moment America refused to die. The unsung heroes. Washington didn't cross alone. Glover's mariners, Knox's gunners, and young officers like Monroe and Hamilton were linchpins. Sullivan and Greene executed the pincer movement flawlessly. Even the storm, a cruel foe, became an ally by masking their approach. These men, often overshadowed by Washington's legend, turned a suicide mission into a masterstroke. The Delaware crossing is etched in American history, but its gritty reality, hours of freezing toil, a leader risking all, and a ragged army defying odds, outshines the myth. It wasn't a grand strategy, but a frantic bid for survival that changed history. On that stormy Christmas night, Washington didn't just cross a river, he carried a revolution across the abyss. Well, there you have it. An exciting hour-by-hour historical account that set the direction of a new nation that would become the most powerful influence in the world. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and click the notification bell for more interesting videos. And if you are a teacher or homeschooler, please include this in one of your history classes. And thanks for watching.